A fire inside, I hope you suffer. And if you've been watching the weather on some of these Major League Baseball playoff games, there has been some suffering. Good evening, afternoon, whenever you happen to be listening, and welcome to the Broadhurst-Watkins Sports Report.
Sports in black and white.
The All Sports Edition. I am your host. I am the voice of reason. Allegedly. My name is Harry Broadhurst. Joining me as per usual, he is the DSDO and the HNIC of the Not a Network podcast division. He is Erik Watkins.
You know, as a Masked Singer fan, I feel kind of called out with that weather statement.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ken Jeong says what?
No, Harry. No, Harry.
You should go back to making mediocre sitcoms. Dr. Ken was not good.
I was going to say low blow, but having seen Dr. Ken, I can't because you're right.
Dr. Ken was not good.
No.
There's a reason it lasted like 2 seasons.
Was it 2 seasons? I thought it was only 1. Anyways.
Anywho, okay, so the All Sports Edition actually comes with you with kind of a truncated slate this week. Not a whole lot on the ESPN front page for non-football news, but this time of the year, such is to be expected. The equinox is not quite yet upon us. College basketball season has not yet started. The NBA is still in preseason mode, and we are no longer punchier than Draymond Green. We will be getting to a full NBA preview a little bit later on in the month. Don't you guys worry your pretty little heads. We also promised you an NHL preview. Well, about that. So if there's one thing that we definitely do not condone here on BWSR, it's half-assing.
True.
We are whole ass or nothing.
Exactly. We're like Homer Simpson. We use our whole ass.
I appreciate a good Simpsons reference. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
The Treehouse of Horror event just started and tapped out, too. But anyways, insufficient time to put together a proper season preview. So what we are going to do is we are going to make sure that we take the next week in order to study up, evaluate rosters, evaluate changes, evaluate situations. I will probably pick up the Hockey News 2022-2023 NHL preview issue, one of the better sports annual publications that gets put out on a year in, year out basis. And coming from somebody who traditionally gets a lot of sports annuals over the course of a calendar year, you know my affinity for the Phil Still book. That says something. So we are going to postpone our NHL preview to next week. However, that is not to say that the season has not started, because it has. And as you can see, Mr. Watkins is celebrating due to the fact that his Florida Panthers are 1-0-0.
And if you Islanders don't like it, well, in a couple weeks you'll have 4 seconds. We love that barn. It's all nice and cozy.
The Detroit Red Wings are 0-0-0. Our regular season hasn't started yet. I think we have our first game tomorrow, actually. If memory serves, I think it's on the front page of ESPN. It has like the personal teams, like the followed team listing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fairly certain it's Red Wings tomorrow.
Yep, you are at home against the traditional original 6 rival Habitants.
Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's us and the Canadians. That's how we started our season? What's that all? Never mind. Not going to make the bad Canada joke there. I know a certain particular Canadian who would be very disappointed in me if I took the low-hanging fruit. All right, so quick takeaways from tonight's 3-1 victory.
Welcome to Florida, Keith Kachuk. I mean, we're glad to have you here. Nice.
Former Blackhawk?
Former Calgary Flame, actually.
Which Tkachuk am I thinking of then? Matthew Tkachuk, maybe?
No, the one that I'm thinking about is Matthew, because her father was Keith and he was a Blue. But yes, we got him in the trade where we sent Huberdeau up to Calgary.
As in Jonathan Huberdeau?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So our offense not quite clicking at the same level under the new coach, but that's really not a bad thing. Bob staying in net, first win of the season, 32 saves.
All right. For those uninitiated, when he says Bob, he means Sergei Bobrovsky.
So overall, all right. I know in a mild Panthers preview, I know they're wondering, okay, is the defense going to step up? The scoring pace is going to drop off. How are we going to replace a guy like Huberdeau? Are we going to drop in some places predicted 20 points in the standings? We'll figure it out. Things are fine so far the opening game. And even if we still drop 20 points, that's still a 100-point season. And in this division, I'm good with that. That'll still be enough to get back to the playoffs.
And you avoid that dreaded P word at the end of the season as well.
Fucking Colorado.
If it helps, you aren't the only member of this network that feels that way.
Oh, I'm well aware. Now all three of us know the pain one way or another. Three out of the four of us.
That's okay. We just beat their ass on the ice. That's what we did.
True.
But anywho, yeah, I don't really have anything to say about the Red Wings. My expectations are, well, low, if I'm being honest. But in fairness, they've been relatively low for the last couple of seasons. It's a rebuild in Detroit. The days of the Russian army or the Red Army in Detroit are long over with, obviously. Even if there are some remainders, specifically being our general manager, Steve Yzerman. But there are bright spots, obviously. At one point, fastest skater in the league, and now perennial all-star Dylan Larkin being primary among them. Although I do believe Larkin's going to be starting the season on the injured list, if I'm not mistaken. Because I don't think he played in a single preseason game either.
No, but while expectations are still relatively low, don't be surprised if you're in much more contention throughout this season.
Well, I think the Atlantic in general kind of took a step back. And I would argue the best division in hockey this season is probably going to be the Metropolitan. Pittsburgh looked every bit the Stanley Cup contenders this year that they were projected to be. They put a beating on Arizona tonight, 6-2.
Yeah, but asterisk because
Arizona? Yeah, I'm aware. Let's be honest, this is a team that might not have an arena come the end of the season. So,
well, I mean, they did lock in that multi-year deal to play at Arizona State, so.
Yeah, but that's under the assumption that they don't even get their logo at center ice or anything.
I mean, this is what happens. Hey, Gary, I'm sure there's a lovely little place by the name of Quebec City who would love to continue talking to you. Just saying.
Are you insinuating potential return of the Nordiques?
I mean, light blue and red jerseys.
It's worked out sending a couple of teams back to Canada. Look how well Winnipeg has redeveloped their franchise.
Exactly. If I were to sit and say Allez les Nordiques, I think people would pick up what I'm putting down.
I don't.
Saying, Gary.
I don't speak French, so I have no idea what the hell he just said.
Oh, believe me, you'll be learning bits of Le Québécois before you know it.
Québécois, I do know, but that has more to do with Kevin Owens than anything else.
Oh, tabarnak. Anyway.
Anywho, so yeah, our NHL preview has been postponed a week. We will go into much more thorough detail not about all of the teams, obviously, but we'll do like a division by division preview and kind of give our projected standings, like who we think the 8 playoff teams in each conference will be. And then we may run it to me. I don't know if we'll run the full playoffs to the Cup, but we might give our Stanley Cup final predictions, who and how many.
I think we can do that.
So, yeah, stay tuned to next week for that and more in-depth detail onto the start of the regular season, because we are just like 2 days into the regular season at time of recording. And the second day that we're into the regular season was literally officially opening night for the NHL, not counting the overseas games. So, all right, we'll move on from that and we'll go to soccer. And the reason we're going to go to soccer now is because I feel baseball is a bigger story and it ties into our finishing segment as well. So it makes more sense to have baseball lead into that. How are things in Europa this year? I'm guessing that face said not well.
The good news is we're qualified to advance in at least some form. We're going to, at a minimum, the first knockout round.
So you could end up facing a drop from the Champions League.
Right.
Okay.
The bad news is I'm not putting this entirely on Erik ten Hag. He knew the situation. We needed to complete the 6-pointer against Omonia Nicosia. But boy, Scott McTominay saved our ass. I mean, I give full credit to Cristiano Ronaldo and Casemiro rolling back the years a little bit at their time at Real Madrid. Thankfully, we don't have to deal with the mess that is Harry Maguire, but Bruno Fernandes has been literally midfield. David De Gea hasn't had to do too much, thankfully, but this was a very, very underwhelming performance. Thankfully, McTominay from 6 yards out. We got a 1-0 win. We're second in our group. So we only need really our big result against Sheriff to really lock everything up. I don't know necessarily if winning the group is really still feasible, although mathematically possible.
Sheriff is the one that won on the shocking run in Champions League last year, yes?
Mm-hmm. Sheriff Tiraspol.
Yeah, I see you guys are currently sitting behind Real Sociedad in your group currently.
Yep, we are sitting behind them, and we definitely.
I assume a head-to-head loss, given the fact that it's 3-1, they're 4-0. So I assume that the one loss in the group was to Real.
1-0. 1-0.
Okay. Sheriff beat the Italian club that you just mentioned.
Yep, Nicosia.
Nicosia, yeah. They're technically speaking, 2 games left. Realistically speaking, Sheriff would have to win both, including beating you guys head-to-head. Mm-hmm. And they would have to do so with a superior goal margin because you guys are currently 7 goals up on them. So they would need a big result against you guys. Where's the run back against Sheriff?
That is at Old Trafford. So the fact that we beat them 2-0 away, at minimum, they would need to win 2-0 at our place because the first tiebreaker is head-to-head result, like how you would have it in your 2-legged playoff.
Okay, I thought they got rid of the the goal differential for the playoff thing.
Well,
like the away goal. I thought they got rid of the away goal thing.
Yeah, they got rid of the away goal, so they would count the same. So,
if it were 2-0, under the old rules, it would have to be 2-0 in order to push it. Like a 3-1 would give them the advantage because they would have more away goals.
Precisely.
Okay, continue.
So if we can go ahead and at least get a point, ideally 3 to get that one, and then all we would have to do is get our win against Real Sociedad to go ahead, win the group, and get a bye into the second knockout round, which that one I'm a little bit more nervous about now, but the 3 points against Sheriff would put my mind at ease.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't wouldn't? Oh no, never mind. Because that would put them at 15, and you guys would be at 12 if you beat Sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
So it would come down to the head-to-head with Sociedad. Liverpool is in Group A in Champions League, currently sitting in second place in Group A, which would put them through to the round of 16. Third place in Champions drops down to the Europa League, like we were talking about that first knockout that Erik was mentioning. And for ours, it would be Ajax. Liverpool still plays Ajax again. We actually just played Rangers on Wednesday, I believe it was.
Oh boy, I wouldn't necessarily say you played Rangers.
We beat
More
Rangers'
like,
ass.
yeah, you pretty much snatched their soul. And I'm trying to remember, was that in Glasgow? Was that at?
Yeah, it was at Rangers.
Yeah, because I'm trying to remember if they play at Ibrox. I believe they do.
I think the two games we have left are at Ajax and home for Napoli, because I think the loss to Napoli 3-1 was in Napoli.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the way that our group would end, because we're in the same situation you are. We're second in our group. Napoli is sitting on 12. We're sitting on 9, because we lost head-to-head to Napoli in Napoli earlier in the league. So the big win over Rangers, 7-1, which is a very uncommon scoreline in soccer. The fastest hat trick in UEFA Champions League history from King Mo, Mohamed Salah, came into the game in the 68th minute as a substitute, had a hat trick by the 74th minute. Or no, excuse me. I thought it was the 78th minute. And then the hat trick was by the 84th.
I will go ahead and confirm that for you, but I do know the exact time.
Like 6 minutes and 17 seconds.
6:12.
So 5 seconds quicker than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pulling up the thing on my 75th, 80th, 81st. So yes, came on in the 75th minute. Man, he scored right as he came onto the pitch in the 74th then.
No, he didn't score immediately. He came on in the 68th minute, and then he scored his first in the 75th minute. So yeah, 75, 80, and 81. So in about the same amount of time after he got onto the pitch, it took him in that next exact chunk of time to score.
So it counts from when you score your first to when you score your third, not from when you come onto the pitch.
Correct.
Gotcha. All right, that makes sense then. So it wasn't, he did come onto the pitch in the 68th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I did see that correctly originally. But the point being is, in addition to Salah's hat trick, Firmino scored twice, which is good to see him getting back up there and getting back into first-team reps as well. So if I'm not mistaken, it might have been Firmino that came off for Salah.
Oh, I believe it was. Yeah, because I did see that substitution. It was Firmino.
And then Darwin Núñez, who was the other half, the other third, because traditionally our starting three up front are Salah, Núñez, and Luis Diaz now that Sadio Mane is in Germany professionally. Munich, I think?
I
believe Sadio signed with Bayern Munich.
Yeah, and it was Firmino came off, but he was substituted by Diogo Jota. Salah came on for Nunez.
Okay, so that's weird. Yeah, I'm looking at the substitute list now too, and I see that so they're doing 5 substitutes in Champions League this year?
Yeah, they decided to keep that rule from last year to this year because, again, everybody's talking about the number of games, and especially with the World Cup being in a normal
Right, they're
window,
having to condense all the scheduling, and all these teams are having to play multiple games close together. Like, I think Liverpool has a Premier League game on Saturday against West Ham. As a matter of fact.
Yep, 2:30
against West Ham United.
Mm-hmm.
So the condensing of the schedule over in Britain for the sake of the Premier League, as well as trying to fit in Champions, Europa. Are they doing the FA Cup this year, or are they postponing that because of the World Cup?
No, FA Cup going on as scheduled. I just don't. It hasn't started yet for the Premier League teams.
Okay, because the Premier League teams don't come in until like round 4, right?
Third round.
Round 3? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they're still in like the qualifying stages and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Expectations for the rest of Europa?
Oh, I'm a little bit anxious as far as the draw. The only thing is that last match against Real, the fact that we lost at the Theater of Dreams. So we've got to go and at least win, ideally 2-0 in Spain. My heart tells me very doable. My head tells me we're in the Europa League for a reason. So we may have to claw our way through that first knockout round and hope we get a friendly draw.
So potential opponents for you guys right now. I don't know if you've been paying attention or not. Liverpool, which would be not Liverpool, sorry, third place teams, my mistake. Ajax, Atalanta, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Barcelona, which would be a hell of a draw for a knockout.
Ooh.
Sporting Club Portugal. Shakhtar Donetsk. MIL. I have no idea who that is.
Oh, I can look at.
Oh, that might be AC Milan, actually.
Oh.
It is AC Milan.
Oh.
They just took one on the chin at home against Chelsea, 2-0. Sevilla, who you've run into trouble with in the past. I feel your pain there. And Juventus is in third place in Group H.
So, storylines. Robert Lewandowski. Ronaldo's former club in Juventus. Ten Hag's former club in Ajax.
Barcelona, just because Barcelona. Obviously
well,
not.
Like I said, Robert Lewandowski.
Barcelona, the former home of Messi, correct?
Yep. Who they've actually been saying they want to try to get their salary under control. They want to bring him back.
Maybe for like a Sayonara campaign?
In essence.
Let him retire as a Barcelonian? I feel Barcelonian.
Yeah, Barcelonian.
Liverpool's in second place, so we would obviously face one of the group leaders. Is it A versus B?
No.
Or is that pot drawed?
Pot draw.
Okay.
See, your group winners are seeded, runners up, and teams from the same association cannot play each other in the round of 16. From quarterfinals onward, everything's clear sailing.
And you can't play the team that was in your group in the original knockout, in the original round robin as well.
Correct.
All right, so that means right now Liverpool's potential opponents would be Brussels, Bayern Munich, which there's your story with Sadio Mane.
Barcelonan. Okay.
Duly noted.
Leave it to the resident Andesian to help us with that one.
Brussels, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, or Paris Saint-Germain. Those are our only options.
Yeah.
And actually, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, because we can't play Napoli because they're in our group. Mm-hmm. And the other 3 group leaders currently in the Champions League are City, Tottenham, and Chelsea.
Good luck. Hopefully that you go ahead and you get Brussels.
It would suck to draw. It would suck to draw Bayern. Salah and Sadio faced off head-to-head quite a bit in Africa with Sudan versus Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And more often than not, Sadio's come out of the head-to-head with the advantage.
Look at what happened at AFCON and in...
The fact that Sudan's in the World Cup and Egypt is not.
Just you beat me to the punch. World Cup qualifying.
Mm-hmm. I believe Sudan won 1-0 in that game, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a slim pot too, with the other 3 Premier League teams leading their respective groups as well.
The Premier League is on the rise. When the hell did Harry Broadhurst replace me on parallel convergence with all these clubs who also have league teams? I kept trying to tell you. The ideology of being a Polo Deportivo is real in esports.
You realize that all 4 of the Champions League teams would advance at this rate? And shouldn't there have been a 5th team from the Champions League this year? Didn't you guys win Europa last year?
No, we didn't.
Who won Europa last year?
Oh, because I know when we were last in the Europa final, we lost to Villarreal.
Who the hell won Europa last year?
Eintracht Frankfurt.
They are currently... I feel like that would be EIN.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure?
Positive. 2021-22 UEFA Europa League champion Eintracht Frankfurt.
I don't see them in the Champions League draw.
They're in the same group as Tottenham.
Tottenham, Marseille, Sporting Club Portugal, and SGE. Eintracht. Why are they SGE? It's them.
Yeah, that's one of their nicknames. Sportsgemeinde Eintracht.
So I'm assuming that's like the German equivalent of Sporting Club Eintracht.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That explains it. I'm like, who the frick is SG? Okay, that explains it then.
Well, yes, he's aware of Fenerbahce, which you spelled incorrectly. He just mentioned Paris Saint-Germain and, well, Schalke, which isn't doing too hot. Wait a minute.
Schalke 04, if I'm not mistaken, I believe is the official team name.
Mm-hmm. I gotta see. Yeah, Schalke they are finally back in Ein Bundesliga, winning a promotion by winning Schweizer Bundesliga last season.
which is the second tier of the Bundesliga.
Mm-hmm. And yes, as we have the appropriate Chiron, we have nothing to shtick but shtick itself. So Shameless Cross Promotion is not a network gimmick exclusive.
I'm sure there will be more parallel convergence across many of these same stations over the course of this coming weekend.
Oh yeah, we're into week 2 of groups at Worlds, and needless to say, there's a certain Andesian who had a lot of hopium and is now taking copious amounts of copium right now. Yeah, I said it. I called it too.
Are you saying it's hope? Are you saying it's hocus copus?
In a way,
It is that time of the year, you know.
Group A has you on the super copium. Yeah, that'll do it.
As
North
far
American teams have not fared well whatsoever.
as far as the Liverpool goes with the Champions League here, I don't think we're catching Napoli, and I think a lot of that's going to do with the fact that I think Jurgen Klopp has to be smart about this. We are mid-tier in the Premier League right now. If we want to do anything in order to change that, we're going to have to go on a major run. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I'm saying that, like you said, the Premier League is definitely way up from what it was, and we're seeing teams that nobody expected to rise to the levels they have, such as Arsenal this season.
Arsenal, they have their hot start, yes. Erling Haaland is a cheat code. I am so mad.
Not to mention the other thing, too, about the have to realize that winning Champions League may be the only way back to Champions League next year, based on the way things are going in the Premier League, with Liverpool sitting at... Am I back? I froze for a second.
You did, but you're back. But I'm going to have to step away for a moment.
All right, so while he steps away, Liverpool's 2-4-2 on the season, which would be 2-2-4 for most American sports fans. 2 wins, 2 losses, 4 draws. Sitting in 10th, if I'm not mistaken, in the Premier League standings. The match with West Ham coming up. We just lost to Arsenal 3-2 this past weekend, but that was on the road, so we'll get them back in Anfield a little bit later on in the season. But going back to what I was saying, I think Jurgen Klopp has to realize that Champions League might be the only way back to Champions League next season. Things aren't going great in the Premier League, and that's not really a surprise given what we lost. I don't think people realized how important Sadio Mane was to this team. And throughout the course of the regular Premier League season thus far, it's pretty clear that our offense has not been the same without Sadio. It was nice to see them break out for 7 against Rangers, but let's be honest, as much fun as the Rangers story was last year, and it was fun, the Rangers is an inferior talent level to the clubs that we're playing on a week in, week out basis in the Premier League. Erik mentioned the fact that the game was in Scotland. The Scottish Premier League is nowhere near the level of the English Premier League. So while it was nice to have that bounce back game against Rangers on Wednesday with the 7-1 finish, like I talked about Firmino and Nunez, and then the hat trick from Salah as well. Clearly, there's significant room for improvement still with the Liverpool club. And I think we're going to have to see it either start to showcase itself sooner rather than later in the EPL, or Jurgen Klopp is going to have to go full focus forward in the Champions League in order to keep us as a Champions League team.
And the thing is, if it were just a traditional season where we'd be dealing with the top 6, that's one thing. But you have the likes of Newcastle United, who were trying to, over time, make it a top 7, thanks to their new ownership. Then you have a surprise like Brighton, who There's already mutters of making a Leicester City type run from the 15-16 season, so
If I'm not mistaken, Brighton played us to a 3-3 draw at Anfield earlier this season.
they indeed did.
Yeah.
So yeah, Bournemouth and Fulham. Yes, I have to mention Fulham for reasons. I wouldn't worry about them long term. If we get to Thanksgiving and like the World Cup break, and then going into the new year, and they're still top half, then maybe. But
I actually
you
see
don't have.
some. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished. Go ahead.
Yeah, you don't have too many teams that you would have to leapfrog if you can get everything together.
I actually see some very sad news right now if the season were to end today. Leicester would be relegated.
Yep, they are right at the bottom. 5 points from safety with only one win.
3 points from safety.
Oh, right, that's right, because it's only the bottom three. But yeah, 3 points from safety. Them, Wolves, and Nottingham Forest, which Forest, I'm not surprised. Wolves, kind of surprised.
Wolverhampton was a top 10 club last year.
They were a top 10 club last year, but that's usually not their norm. You go back over the past few decades, little bit of yo-yoing between top flight and second tier.
The one good news for Liverpool is they have a game in hand despite sitting in 10th place on the table as well.
Thankfully, so do we.
I was going to say, them, Chelsea, Man United, and Leeds, Crystal Palace, Brighton
And
have only played 8. Everybody else has played 9. Who's Arsenal's lost to? Do you know off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head, but I'm going to look up their schedule.
Like, I'm genuinely curious now.
Oh, yeah, that was us. It was a while back, but we beat them 3-1 at home.
Yep, there it is right there. They had just beaten Aston Villa. Right before you guys, and then, 3-1 in Old Trafford. I mean, it's a pretty nice thing to be able to say that you hung the only loss on the league leaders right now.
And the fact that we're only 1 point outside of the top 4 with the game in hand, even though that game in hand is on Chelsea. Again, my expectations also tempered. But right now, even though we are the only team in the league yet to deal with a draw, Ten Hag has got us in much better hands.
You are 5-0-3. Or 5-3-0 to American fans.
Well, I take that back. Us and Arsenal were the only ones to not have a draw, and City unbeaten.
7-0-2. Ironically enough, the same winning percentage that Arsenal has, 889.
Mm-hmm.
Or excuse me, not 880. Yeah, 889. Liverpool's winning percentage currently sits at 500. Not good.
I swear, had it not been for Erling's father, Alfie, and that terrible hit back in the day, that man would be in United Red right now.
You guys are 6-2-5 on the season thus far.
Imagine what we would be with that glorious Nordic being. Nope, I'm not going to get mad.
So apparently we expanded our coverage from your UEFA and Champions League to include a little bit of Premier League discussion as well. Here's the important thing to remember about the Premier League so far, though, folks. We are approximately a quarter of the way into the season. 38 games. Most teams have played 9. Slightly less than a quarter.
Just a little less than a quarter, yes.
Yeah. So let's for the for the sake of accuracy, we'll say we are approximately 23% of the way into the regular season.
You're either top flight or top flight security of the world. Nothing for that joke. No. Continue.
A lot of Premier League football to be played, and a lot of Premier League football to be played in a very condensed time frame. So the key for this season is going to be health, squad management. I trust Jurgen. I believe in Jurgen. I also hope that Jurgen realizes if it comes to the point of no return in the Premier League that we put our focus towards the Champions League.
Knowing him and with his history, that's definitely going to be the mindset.
Not to mention there is that whole matter of avenging what happened last year in the Champions League final as well.
Yep. Oh, no. No, don't. No.
I didn't even get the reference.
Neither did I.
All right, moving forward. Actually, I think that would be in 4 seconds.
I mean, you know what? I had something for this, but I'm not gonna.
All right, let's move over to the Major League Baseball postseason, shall we? Can I just say how happy I was with Kyle Wright's performance last night?
I mean,
this is a guy. Just real quick, this was a guy who was pitching in the minor leagues last season because he couldn't get his shit together. And now he's going 6 scoreless off of a rain delay for 3 hours as the Braves even up the NLDS against Philadelphia at 1 game apiece, shutting out Philadelphia 3-0 after losing game 1 7-6 the night prior.
Yeah, thanks for blowing that bonus point because I picked your Braves in a sweep, but I'm not terribly mad. Yeah, I know that. And first of all, with Cat Williams, that was next Friday and primarily Friday after next. You got to remember, he's not a movie guy.
I believe the 2 words that I would use here, Erik, are
negative squirrel.
Negative squirrel. So let's go ahead and do a quick rundown of what's happened thus far in the postseason. You were correct. Tribe over your Rays. Or, excuse me, Guardians over your Rays.
Yeah, it was fitting that walk-off home run happened as I was taking out the trash. The first ever...
Squid bit. Ding!
The first ever postseason game to go scoreless into the 15th inning.
Oscar Gonzalez with the walk-off in the 15th. The Tom Hamilton call is epic. But realistically speaking, you said yourself you kind of expected this. I had Tampa Bay in 3. You picked Cleveland, but I believe you had Cleveland in 3 as well.
No, I had Cleveland in a sweep.
Oh, so you got the bonus point there, too.
I did. The way that we were backsliding, again, we could not hit for crap. And that pretty much showed itself in both of those games. I mean, our pitching really stepped up and got back to where it was, but even in that 15-inning game, we only had 3-4 hits?
4 in the 15-inning game, and I think you only had 3 in game 1 as well.
Yeah, we just were not swinging the bat.
Kind of ironic that it was the former Clevelander, Corey Kluber, that allowed the walk-off, too.
Baseball has a weird way of doing that sort of a thing, especially at Progressive Field. Hey, we saddle up and we go towards 2023. It's not an ending to the season that I would have liked, but we at least know where we stand, and we can look forward to spring training with at least a little bit of vigor, knowing that we're still damn competitive in the AL East, and we need to shore up for these shorter series.
And I would argue that you could make the conversation that the AL East is the most competitive division in baseball as well.
Absolutely agree with what the Blue Jays did. The Orioles being competitive until the last 2 weeks. The Red Sox just having an off year. You expect them to come back. So, yeah, we'll be ready.
You'll notice how very roller coastery Boston is too, though. Like Boston will have like one down year, and then they'll have like 2 good years in a row. So they tend to kind of flux back and forth. And this just happened to be a down year for Boston. Baltimore was the surprise of that division this year. I don't think anybody saw Baltimore winning nearly as many games as they did. But it was pretty much expected to be a 3-dog race for the divisional crown with you guys, Toronto, and the Yankees.
Oh, yeah. And the fact that we were in it as late in the season as we were, even with the Yankees being, Aaron Judge and a whole bunch of duct tape for a while.
The Yankees also getting off to as hot of a start as they didn't do anybody else in the East any favors either.
Go back a second. What was the 15th inning call? Trying to find a clip now since it was a claimable legendary call.
Tom Hamilton, WTAM Cleveland 1100. Search for the Tom Hamilton walk-off call. And if you are a baseball fanatic such as myself, Erik as well, the name Tom Hamilton is very familiar to baseball fans. Widely considered to be one of the best, if not the best, radio broadcaster in baseball. All right.
No argument for me.
We mentioned Toronto. Toronto took one on the chin against Seattle, getting knocked out in 2.
Yeah. I mean, I thought fairly young team still in Seattle. First time in the playoffs since 2001.
Put that into perspective the same way we did last week. Griffey Jr. was still a Mariner.
Credit to them for really stepping up. And Jesus, the fact that they're getting a home playoff game at what is now T-Mobile Park, that is going to be an insane crowd. An insane crowd. May not help much, but they're going to enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah, let's talk about the ALDS since that's the obvious transition point here. Cleveland's down 1-0 to the Yankees. Game 2 was supposed to be today at time of recording. However, it was rained out and postponed until tomorrow afternoon. I believe a 4:00 start tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. Game 2 for Houston and Seattle did happen. Houston won and went up 2-0 in the series. Me and Erik were talking about this off air, and I said, because he was mentioning to me that they might have to adjust the kickoff time for Seattle Seahawks' game on Sunday. I said, no, they won't, because Houston's going to end this series on Saturday. And I honestly feel that way. I think Houston sweeps Seattle, because this was my ALDS matchup. I had Houston-Seattle. I actually picked Seattle to beat Toronto when we did our predictions. So
you did. So you did get the point because you had that going the distance, whereas they won it in a sweep.
So after the American League, Erik was up 2-1. Because I stupidly trusted his Rays. All right. Anyways, I still stand by my statement. I think that Houston gets the job done on Saturday. But the fact that this young Mariners team, and young being relative because obviously the Guardians are the youngest team in baseball, but young by Major League standards, this Mariners team that was able to snap that 21-season playoff drought, you got to think that this is the beginning of big things in Seattle if they can keep this core group of players together.
Oh, yeah. And considering we talked about the AL East, the AL West being what it is, it's Houston and everybody else. I mean, Texas has been as Niecy Nash would say, a hot cup of nothing. The Angels, okay, you still have Mike Trout, even though he's already been there forever. You have Shohei Ohtani. How much longer are you really going to keep him?
You fire one of the best managers in Major League Baseball in Joel Madden. No, it's Ohtani, Trout, and not much else in Los Angeles, and I think that's the problem. Is there's not a lot around those guys to protect them in the lineup, and Ohtani can only pitch every fifth day.
Exactly. And then you'll have the dumpster fire of the soon-to-be Las Vegas A's. Maybe once they get that going, Billy Beane will go back to working his Moneyball magic.
I will say this much: if you want to play the Hamilton call later, we can.
Yeah.
I will say this much about going back to your division, though, with Toronto here before we move on from this series. The one thing I like about Toronto is the fact that they are second generationally loaded. And I think that pays homage to the tradition of the game, but also the current generation of the game as well. Specifically being Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Dante Bichette, and Biggio's kid, too.
Yep, Cavan Biggio. Now, I will say this. Putting this out into the universe. Say my Rays leave for Montreal. They can work out a deal to keep a junior in Canada playing at his dad's stomping grounds. I ain't going to be mad.
If they moved to Montreal, would you still be an Expos fan?
Damn right. I'd get me some Expos gear.
Very well. All right, let's move over to the National League, shall we?
Yes. You take on your Braves. I will return, and I should be good the remainder of the show.
All right. He's got Mama Watkins situation once again, so he'll be right back. We'll talk about the Braves here in a second because we kind of briefly mentioned in passing the series with Philadelphia there. Let's talk about how Philadelphia got here with a 2-game sweep of the St. Louis Cardinals, which nobody saw coming, ourselves included. I actually believe both of us had St. Louis in a sweep over Philadelphia. The thing about St. Louis is as nice of a story as it was, specifically with the run for Albert Pujols getting his 700th career home run this year, and the final seasons for both Adam Wainwright and Yadier Molina, baseball's all-time winningest battery. Philadelphia came in on a high note going into this postseason. We talked about the fact that they had to chase down Milwaukee to get that last wild card spot. So I think Philadelphia is one of those teams, and we found Atlanta very similar last year, where you get hot at the right time in the baseball playoffs, and it doesn't matter. As long as you win enough games to get in, it doesn't matter which team has the most wins going into the postseason. It's whoever gets hottest at the correct time. Let's not forget the 2021 MLB champions, the Atlanta Braves, only won 88 games in the regular season, 88-74. So there's that opportunity for getting hot at the right time. And there's something to be said for peaking at the correct moment. And we could be seeing an example of it with this Philadelphia Phillies team. Specifically, I want to go back to game one, where final score was 7-6, but it was not that close of a game. The Braves scored 3 times in the bottom of the ninth to cut it from 7-3. And for most of the game, it was at least a 5-run differential until Atlanta got hot late. Philadelphia's bats were working early in that game. First and the third innings, they scored 2 runs in both the first and the third. And coming out of the third inning, it was 4-1 Philadelphia at Choice Park.
In a long ball, when the Braves hit 88 miles an hour and going back, yeah, we'll definitely be talking NHL next week. So you have fun with that. There's a lot going on with the Trop and the Rays and stadiums and split seasons and everything. That's been drama for about 5 years now, it feels like it.
Going back to the Phillies and the Cardinals. Both of us had the Cardinals in a sweep in that series.
Yep.
And I was talking about it too. It's just a case of Philadelphia getting hot at the right time, was it not? We talked about them having to chase down Milwaukee for that final wild card spot, and now they just carried that momentum over into the series at Busch Stadium.
Yeah, and the fact that Milwaukee faded down the stretch, the fact that Philadelphia had a little bit of an easier sort of a schedule, and the Cardinals, I mean, three legends of the franchise, three of the best in the game in Wainwright, Molina, and Pujols going off into the sunset. You would have wanted to see them better, but product of winning, what we can all agree was a fairly weak division in the NL Central.
I would argue the worst division in baseball this year.
Yeah.
Two of the bottom four teams in the league in Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, a Cubs team that was surprisingly bad, and a Milwaukee team that, like we talked about, faded. I will say this much. I have made it no secret. I am not a Cardinals fan. I will never be a Cardinals fan. Those who know me know why, know the history of the Braves and the Cardinals when it comes to the postseason.
Yeah, because for some weird reason, they decided to keep Atlanta in the NL West.
Even the more recent history and the fact that the Cardinals ended Chipper's career in the wild card game on that stupid ass infield fly rule from a couple of years back. Albert Pujols retiring as a Cardinal had to happen. And I mentioned it while you were away. Adam Wainwright and Yadi Molina will be standing together again real soon. It'll be approximately 5 years from now on a stage in Cooperstown.
Of course. And one thing that I really loved with what Pujols was able to do, I even mentioned this to Randy Isbell in the R&R Sports Report.
Tuesday nights, 9 to 11 Eastern on Facebook and on the KLCZradio.com.
Whoa, they were mentioning about Pujols. Randy wanted him to stick around another year. I'm like, look, if he hit 700 this year, which he did, let him go out.
What's left?
Exactly.
I mean, the sour taste of losing in the wild card, what basically amounts to the wild card round aside, what's left for Albert Pujols to accomplish in the game of baseball?
Exactly. He's got the stats. He's got the ring. Thankfully, I mean, he's got his career sewed up. He's going to be in Cooperstown right there, too.
We talked about the fact that Rivera was the first unanimous vote for the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Pujols should be. Yachty should be. I don't know if Wainwright is unanimous, but Pujols, Yachty, and Wainwright should all be sharing a stage in 5 years.
Pujols, yes. Yachty, yes. As far as they've been, especially weird to say this because nobody saw this coming. Of all of the catching Molina brothers, all of them have rings. Who would have thought that young Yachty, as the youngest, would end up with the most?
Because Yachty's Benji's younger brother, right?
Benji and
Jose. I thought, wasn't there a Javier Molina as well?
Not that I know of. Just Benji, Jose, Yadier.
Okay. Maybe I was thinking of Yadier when I okay, regardless. Point being, all three of those men should share a stage in 5 years' time come Cooperstown when the inductions come for this class.
Yeah. I think if anything, though, if there would be one sort of kink in the chain, I can see Wainwright maybe waiting a year, but I don't see anything longer than that.
Pujols is a first ballot, and if you think he's not, you deserve to have your vote taken away.
Oh yeah, Pujols first ballot, boom.
Yadier
First
is
ballot, yeah.
I was just about to say Yadier is quite possibly the best catcher in Major League Baseball history.
And that's saying something.
And then not to mention when you consider the fact that Yadier and Adam Wainwright are the all-time winningest battery in Major League Baseball history as well. Which gives credit to both their stamina in terms of their health, as well as the ability of the organization around them in order to keep them in a position to have that many victories together. So, nothing but respect for Pujols, nothing but respect for Yadier. Wainwright was the pitcher who ended our season a couple of years ago, so but all things considered, it would have been nice to get a little bit of revenge after they ended Chipper's career to be the one to end Yadier's career. But at the same time, congratulations to the Phillies, and we'll see what happens now that we're going back to Citizens Bank for Game 3 tomorrow. All right,
let's get in some of the weather forecast. It's going to be a long weekend.
You know where else we'll eventually be heading this weekend? Petco Park. As the only one of the wild card series to go 3 games, saw San Diego go into Citi Field and knock out the Mets 2-1.
2 things. Number 1.
Fuck our predictions.
Number 2. The New York Post had a perfect headline after that Game 3. 101 damnations.
That's good.
Yeah. They go all out for their sports headlines. The Mets won 101 games in the regular season. Their best in quite some time. They did nothing. Well, I can't say they did nothing.
They did win 1.
They did win 1, but they also made ABC mad in the process because they were primed to have one of those Game 3s. And of course, the only one that had to be a 3-game series was Padres-Mets that was not aired during the early afternoon. That was ESPN's Sunday Night Baseball game. So the Mets just made everybody mad.
As an Atlanta Braves fan, it couldn't have happened to a nicer franchise.
Well, see, you can't party like it's 1986 because the Mets actually, won the World Series that year. Yeah.
That's probably a little bit more accurate. With all due apologies to our dear friend Liz Puglisi, who is a Mets fan, if you did not know. Sorry, not sorry. Bye, Felicia's.
Well, of course, because you have your own vested interest in the Padres.
Surprisingly, not really. She's not a big sports person. That's obviously going to change when she comes out here, but I mean, at least minimally.
Minimally. And yeah, it would have been better had they were able to fly in the Sayonara mob.
Padres and Dodgers. Padres pull off Game 2, or is it 2-0 LA? It is 1-1. So it's 1-1 going back to Petco. Interesting.
Their Padres' first postseason win against the Dodgers in, what did they say, 5 tries?
Got to throw up the graphic for that one, sir. Can you believe the Padres are doing all this without Tatis Jr.?
In a way, yes, because again, they knew the 80-game suspension was coming, and it's like, okay, this isn't going to be a big, 10, 15-day stint on the IL. Yeah, his season's pretty much done.
Well, not to mention getting suspended for a PED test during the regular season makes you ineligible for the baseball postseason.
Yeah, so they're like, okay, we got to build and change our strategy to win without him, and temporarily it's working. But the Dodgers didn't go ahead and win over 110 games for nothing. I'm just glad I had the foresight to pick them in four.
I think I had the Dodgers in a sweep
You did.
over the Mets. So opponent aside, I'm still screwed in terms of my pick for the 2 points. But so you realize after the first round of the postseason, it is 2-1 you.
Yeah.
This is graphic illustration of one thing. We should both stick to football.
And especially actual pick'ems. Yeah, this baseball was way too weird.
Not
However,
not
you give me more cricket predictions and I'm all on it.
not our best series of postseason picks. Both of us did way better picking the NBA last year.
Well, the fact is, the NBA hasn't used the 3-game series since 1983. So
We knew
there's
that was minimum 4.
that.
All right, let's move on to our sport of the week, shall we?
Yes. Going ahead and tying a bow on some of the stuff with the Rays. Wouldn't be surprising if they bailed from the Trop in Tampa Bay proper. MLB hold on MLB a record for lowest attendance at a regular season game. That record has been beaten by Oakland.
Multiple times
Hard.
this season.
Yes.
I believe there was, if I'm not mistaken, I believe there was one Oakland game where the official attendance was like 2,600. Like it was pathetic at Oco.
Yeah. St. Pete, where the stadium is actually located, won't give them the money for improvements. True. Tampa won't give out any tax breaks or money to move them to City of Tampa proper. True. So all of the different sites and plans, including Al Lang Stadium, where the Tampa Bay Rowdies of USL Soccer play, they had a great design for that to be reinvigorated as an outdoor ballpark. That fell through the window, and well, the part of St. Pete that they're in isn't the best. And then going to this, St. Pete and the Trop is hard to get in general if you're not local. Again, part of that. You have to go over the Howard Franklin Bridge, which is notorious in of itself, on 275. The 275 can get backed up through Tampa, especially at rush hour for evening games. Again, 275 in the Howard Franklin. Again, very notorious. The Lightning and Bucks don't have issues with easy access with multiple routes in and out of both local and out of towners that aren't ridden to hell. And this is exactly why the Lightning moved to Amalie Arena out of what became Tropicana Field after it was originally the Thunderdome. Because they had those attendances too. And the fact that building a smaller, sort of a 20,000 seat arena, much, much better than getting, 30, 40,000 for a stadium. So there were inklings as far as with the Rays moving in general, especially when they had the split season idea with Montreal that got, shit canned by MLB. So I would definitely expect a full move at some point because Manfred has said, hey, we want to expand to 32 teams, but first, before expansion, we got to get the A's and Rays to get their venues straightened out and out.
Yeah, what happened in Oakland this year is pathetic.
And Manfred knows it. The A's know it. Other baseball fans know it. They managed to get tax breaks on that too because MLB is used a lot outside of Lightning games. Well, again, 20,000 seat arena. It's easier to fill and easier to get concerts.
I'm back, by the way.
And well, for Beach Mouse, yeah, you just missed us talking about the Astros. I'm not banging on trash cans yet, but well, yeah, Oakland being in such a sorry state of disarray. I mean, the team will spend money.
I will put it to you this way, Andesian. Their AAA ball club outdrew them this year.
This is exactly why I said the soon-to-be Las Vegas A's. Manfred's already given the green light. I wouldn't be surprised if we're sitting here talking in the 2024-2025 season. We're talking about the Las Vegas A's and whatever's left of the Oakland Coliseum being used as a world-class cricket ground like they're building out in Dallas.
No, what needs to be done with O.co and that frickin' ass dump is that thing needs to be imploded.
Well, again, close to it. I mean, get rid of the seats and do like they're going to do, or do like they did with the old Airhawk Stadium in Texas. Repurpose that. The field and everything is the great dimensions for a cricket ground. 15,000 seats around that. Done.
I'm just saying, you know as well as I do that anything, once the A's are done with that stadium, that stadium would need a complete remodel.
Oh, yeah. And you can remodel it as a cricket ground much cheaper.
Then you would.
Even the ICC has already said, hey, it's got the perfect size. Central and Southern California, or even in Northern California, around that Bay Area, have a huge cricket presence, one of our big pockets here in the United States. So it can work.
And I think the problem for the A's is that in that area there, if it's not the Giants or the Warriors, no one gives a damn about sports.
Especially since the Raiders left.
They're right,
was the diehard fan base.
They're right across the bridge from Frisco. Yep. And if I'm not mistaken, the Warriors are based out of Frisco.
They are. They moved out of the Oakland Coliseum to build their new place in Frisco, which is hosting this year's League of Legends World Championship Finals.
And then you also have the situation where the Giants have been a more consistent draw than the A's for years anyways, ever since the years of Moneyball have been faded away.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a secondary team in their own market where they're not a second team. Because technically speaking, Oakland's one of the biggest cities in the country, and they're still drawing 2,600 fans to a game.
It's sad when the fans know that your team is out the door.
Because, appropriately enough, most of the fans beat them out of said door. All right. More baseball coverage next week. Not quite as in-depth as we went tonight, because we are going to focus, like we talked about earlier, next week mostly on our NHL preview for the 2022-23 season. But more baseball postseason coverage next week here. Erik, I think we're bringing back Sport of the Week, are we not? And technically speaking, we're not so much bringing back Sport of the Week as we are bringing back a sport from Sport of the Week with expansion news. And wherein the future of said sport may lie. Let's start with the actual news first, and let's talk some Major League Wiffle Ball here.
So, as those diehard MLW fans know, especially if you got the Midwest Mallards, congratulations on their regular season crown. The playoffs have arrived. Regular season done and dusted. You're having your division series. That will start in a couple of days. However,
Saturday, I believe, on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. However, this road particularly this year, which has seen MLW play in wonderful minor league ballparks. You had their series in Oklahoma, the mini MLB series in Vermont. It's not going to end at the Meadows. No. This year, the wonderful replica trophy will be hoisted by the champion team on the field at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California.
The home of the Los Angeles Chargers and the Los Angeles Rams.
Just like in the National Football League last year, this year's Major League Wiffle Ball season is on a road to LA.
All right, so this obviously brings up the question that I think needs to be asked here. As we're seeing more and more expansion from MLW, the opportunities that they've had to play in minor league ballparks all around the country. You mentioned the Vermont series as well. We also saw series in Oklahoma City this year, in Dayton, and then down in the South as well. Everyone knows that the Meadows, the status base for MLW is in Michigan. However, we've seen such great levels of expansion throughout the country, and you mentioned now that they're going to Los Angeles for the championship series this year. Is this a sign that MLW may expand nationally and start having host cities maybe during Major League Baseball's downtime? I honestly think that it would not be the worst idea, because there is a section of the sports populace that watches baseball and only baseball. And I think that you could capture that populace's attention with something like wiffle ball, given the fact that it has very similar rules and gameplay to Major League Baseball, but in a much more condensed format. Like, we're starting to see all the games being aired on the YouTube channel now for MLW. I could easily see this being something like a Fox Sports 1 or a CBS Sports Network would want to pick up.
Absolutely, because if you look at the format, games, 6-run mercy rule for 20 games, 3-inning games, 5-man rosters. So this is something that you could do very, very inexpensively. And as you said, the condensed format, ESPN has already given MLW exposure by featuring some of the best plays on the SportsCenter top 10. So if you have like maybe an hour or 90 minutes of coverage that you can't fill, I think this would be a good thing. As far as expansion and host cities, even though MLW has gained a lot of attention and money and is a very profitable entity, I see this going more down the path similar to the A7FL, the American 7-Man Football League, to where they have their clusters. You have an entire division with a set of teams in the New York tri-state area, or predominantly New York, New Jersey, Maryland. You now have an entire division in Florida. You have a division out in California, to where everything is self-contained in those divisions. But then once you get those division winners, you play national championships. I think that's something that MLW can very easily do and work at.
And then that's something that I was just about to say too, is I think you could do like regional things, like you keep a league in Michigan.
Yep.
You for like a Midwest area, so like teams almost similar to like Little League, honestly, in a sense.
Exactly. Very similar to Little League.
How Little League has their different, like the 16 different regions that make up Little League baseball. Maybe not necessarily 16, just because I feel like that would be too many too quickly. But you could do like 8 regions throughout the country, and then 4 to 6 teams per region, and then each region sends its representative to the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the finals, which would be at a different hub city every year in order to expand the footprint of Major League Wiffle Ball.
Oh, yeah. And the fact that they've already got this exposure and their various tournaments to where they have encouraged, hey, you want to play MLW and catch our eye, play in these different tournaments that we have our people at throughout the country around the year.
Or the different developmentals as well. Like some of the teams that have moved into MLW started in other regional locations as well.
Right, and I had even mentioned off air, one of the best rookies in the league this year, Jordan Robles, one of, if not the first out-of-state player in the MLW draft, star player from New York. So you can have these sort of connections further baked in, all the better.
I would make the argument that with the exposure that it's gotten through its MLB series, or through because they actually had exposure on MLB TV, if I'm not mistaken. One of the the First Pitch program on MLB Network actually had the kids from MLW on there.
They did.
Sports Center's featured MLW before as well. We talked about the fact that they did the top 10, the place in the top 10 for MLW before. We've seen other major sports programming talk about them as well. First Take on ESPN has had a segment on there. Quick Pitch on MLB Network has featured MLW before too. So there is a growth opportunity that we've seen over the course of the last couple of years for MLW, and it's getting more and more popular amongst a younger fan base than traditionally watches Major League Baseball. So I think that that's an area and a target audience that maybe Major League Baseball isn't reaching, that I think wiffle ball and MLW in general could reach overall as a populace. My only concern is overexpansion. And the reason I say that is I want them to take the cautionary tale of ECW here, and I'm going to tie this into pro wrestling, and then we'll get ready to wrap things up here after Erik gives his thoughts. ECW was a solid number 3 in America, behind the WWF at the time and WCW. ECW got a national television deal with TNN, and that national television deal with TNN ended up being the death of the company because of the money needed for production values and because of the money that wasn't coming in from the contract that they had with TNN, and the fact that TNN dumped them after a year so that that way they could pick up the contract for the WWF's Monday Night Raw back in 2000. Because ECW on TNN aired from September of 1999 to September of 2000 when TNN was able to get the deal for the WWF. The point of this being is that attempt to expand into national exposure for ECW is what killed the company, because higher production values were required, and that were costs that ECW didn't have to finance. The only thing that kept ECW afloat towards the end was the deal that they had with the acclaimed video game company in order to make the ECW video games for like PlayStation and Nintendo 64 and such. Or not Nintendo, GameCube, sorry, pre-64. The point being is that I worry about that whole too much too soon thing for MLW as well. Because while I like the idea of a national expansion from MLW, I think maybe you do it in stages. Maybe you start, it's cool that they're having their championship game in SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. But maybe you do it in stages where you have like a Midwestern hub in Michigan and a Northeastern hub in New York and like a Southern hub in Florida and then like a Southwestern hub in Texas. And then you have those 4 teams get together to crown a national champion for MLW. And then as the company continues to expand and brings more and more people in and has more and more eyes on the product, that's when you can start doing more people and more teams at these MLW tournaments in order to be able to further expand the product into markets that maybe it had previously untapped. I'm hoping Erik is back soon because that's pretty much the end of what I had to say right there. So this dead air part by myself is not great, and I don't have the access to the comments in order to be able to put what people are saying up on screen right now. GTN said, going back to our conversation about the A's, Moneyball, praise be to the wallet of the great Steinbrenner. Fuck the Yankees. As a diehard Braves fan, fuck the Yankees, just general principle. And Dejan mentioned that he had no idea that Oakland was in such a sorry state of disarray. It's bad. It's really bad in Oakland. They should not have a Major League Baseball franchise at this point, and especially not after getting outdrawn by their AAA affiliate, which I think is in Fresno, if I'm not mistaken. And I have to look that up in order to make sure, but pretty sure that's in Fresno. Yeah, that's about all I got right now. We got to wait for Erik to get back so we can go into the official wrap-up for this. But unfortunately, Mr. Watkins is probably busy with MW right now. So a couple other small things here. Draymond Green returned to the Warriors for the first time since the incident with Jordan Poole. Oh, your timing's really good.
Yeah, you were mentioning with the Draymond coming back, he said that he and Jordan Poole are both professionals and they'll work with each other.
Well,
I really think that his comments that he made on a podcast last year about how he felt that, oh, Jordan Poole is legit, and he goes ahead and he talks shit and gets under people's skin. And other guys at practice were like, hey, Dre, why don't you get on him? Why don't you get him to stop popping off at the mouth? And he's like, hey, if you can't handle it, that's a you problem. I think, hindsight being 2020, that didn't sit too well, and that's going to lead to a very interesting dynamic throughout the rest of the preseason. I mean, granted, the team didn't suspend him. They, I believe, fined him. That was about it. I get it entirely, but this is a kind of thing. If certain things go wrong, especially in games early, this can simmer.
Not only can it simmer, this could be the kind of thing that takes down an entire team throughout the course of the season to begin fighting. Look at what happened with the Lakers and LeBron last year. And the fact that I believe for the first time in his career, he missed the playoffs. Or for the first time since he was like a rookie with the Cavaliers or whatever it was. I know it had been like 20 years since he had missed the postseason. Because the Lakers were just ass last year. I think they finished 40-42, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, only time that they finished worse than that was during one of Kobe's later years. He endured a 34-48 season. So your more recent two generations of stars know those lows.
So the thing that you missed when you stepped away, and I wanted to get your opinion real quick on the MLW thing, is I worry that national expansion could be the death of the company. I wanted to get your thoughts on that here because I related it to a story about ECW.
Yep.
And how ECW got the national TV deal with TNN. And that TNN deal basically ended up being the death of the company because of all the added expenditures that went in with the TNN deal. You think that a potential national expansion attempt could be something that could cause some backlash towards MLW due to the fact that it's going to significantly increase the production values necessary as well as the overhead that's going to go into producing the games and the amount of talent that you would need to secure. And not to mention, you would also have the issues of these players possibly looking at other opportunities as well, as if said opportunities were to present themselves.
Again, it depends on really how they do it. If they try to go ahead and get on a big over the air, as we talked about, like say if they try to get a CBS Sports deal, I think that would eventually be the death of the company. And this goes back to the parallels that I mentioned about the A7FL. They have their own channel on Roku, and they have their broadcast on YouTube and Twitch. They've upped their production value to where it is a bit more professional, but nothing to where it's overly serious. I think if MLW can get to that level, keeping it especially on more of your streaming platforms, which could easily provide the players themselves those very same opportunities via those outlets, that bridges the gap a lot easier, and you don't have overhead going through the roof. It's larger, but on the whole, much more manageable.
Like I would make the argument that if you were to go that route, like continuing with the YouTube videos and then being able to upload them to a secondary service, possibly doing like a subscription service for it.
Yeah,
like the opportunity to watch the live games for like $5 or $6 a month or whatever, like similar to how we would see with the NFL Plus's deal. Being able to watch like live games there, or having the opportunity to watch them on a delay through their other streaming outlets as well, too. I think that you could increase your fan base. I think that you can attract more attention to the product. And I think that you could also see that as a revenue stream as well, because I know that they're getting some money off of the videos on YouTube, but they're having to share the YouTube money as well. Like I know YouTube videos, you only get like a portion per so many videos watched.
Yeah, usually how they do is like pay per mil, so many dollars per 1,000 views.
Okay, so whereas if you were to do like a streaming service where you had like an app or something and you were charging like say $5 a month for the app there, however many subscriptions you would have throughout the course of a month for that app would be straight revenue, unless you wanted to raise it a little bit in order to cover or offset the fees charged by perhaps Roku or whatever, or your billing service.
Right. Plus, and you have a combination of things. Have that streaming service. Again, $5-6 a month. I wouldn't go further than that because you don't want to price yourself to the levels of competition and price yourself out of the business.
Right, and that would be a major thing too. Is with the amount of content out there that's available via stream, you want to keep it affordable, but where you're also making money off of it as well.
Right, and another way to build or to even improve on your existing fan base while building new fans, another idea the A7FL did, offer what would be not dirt cheap, but on a grand scale, very affordable levels of investment into the league. Like a couple of times in the past couple of years, the A7FL has opened up and saying, hey, you got a few $100 or even up to like $2,500. Here are the packages you can get. All of the paperwork cleared and everything. You would be an official investor in the A7FL. You have a certain point. You could go ahead and buy and run an A7FL franchise. So I think maybe not quite opening that door yet, but getting up to it, introducing more. While if you have your diehards with hard to do nowadays, but at least some disposable income to get in still relatively early, build yourself like that occasional revenue stream. And that you would only really have to do once a season.
If that. Open the opportunities every couple of years.
Yeah, every year or every other year, have like people interchanging everything, and
like give people
wouldn't have to be any more than like, I know with the A7FL 2,500 with the cost of MLW, you could probably knock that down to like maybe 1,500.
I would
similar levels around there.
I would say probably closer to $1,000, given the fact that, let's be honest, you don't need all of the equipment that you would need for football to play Major League Wiffle Ball.
No, you wouldn't need all the equipment. You would need fewer players. You would need a much smaller field. So yeah, something around, that grand level. And
think, and not to mention, you already have like the barricades out by the walls and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Throw an advertiser's logo on those barricades. The camera that sit up with the diamond plate for the balls and strikes for when they do the games and stuff. Put an advertisement logo on the diamond plate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you would be able to sell advertising opportunities through the course of expansion in order to A, help cover your production values, and B, to make your league competitive towards younger people that might want to see it there. And another thing that I mentioned while you were away was the fact that the MLW market kind of skews towards that younger baseball fan as well, that's looking for a more exciting version of baseball in a much more condensed format. So I think that there's an opportunity to hit that market with MLW that Major League Baseball misses out on just due to the sheer length of the games.
Exactly. People will sit down, watch a 3-inning game for at most an hour, rather than sitting through a 9-inning game, ideally 2.5, but let's be real, closer to more 3 hours.
Well, depending on what happens with the pitch clock and everything next year, we'll talk more about that during the course of the Major League Baseball offseason. But, all right, anything else before we get out of here, Mr. Watkins?
I think oh, geez. It was in my head, so I'm going to say it. I think we've covered all the bases. Hey! I'm here all week. Try the veal.
Tip the veal, try the waitress. All right. I almost used the wrong hand again. He's Erik Watkins. That's what she said. I'm Harry Broadhurst. This has been the Broadhurst-Watkins Sports Report.
Sports in black and white.
The all sports edition. We will see you guys next week with our 2022/23 NHL preview edition here on the Not a Network podcast, available online at Not a Network Pods on Twitter, twitch.tv/AWP podcasts, and by searching for at Not a Network podcast, or by searching specifically for the Broadhurst-Watkins Sports Report on YouTube. He's Erik. I'm Harry, and we'll talk to you guys next week. See ya.